Hello and welcome to this week's IGTV. Does your teen ignore your boundaries and consequences? Or maybe they just bust through them all and don't give a crap, and you are feeling so frustrated and at your wit's end to have it matter, you don't know what else to do. You are in the right place. My name is Allie Payne, and I'm a certified life coach, certified relationship systems coach. I've been helping parents of teens to end the painful disconnection, stressful silences, emotional blow-ups, and create relationships built on trust and respect for 15 years now. And this is one of the hottest topics that I talk about with parents. It's also one of the most frustrating. I want to welcome you. I am actually broadcasting today from a bedroom. Yep, a bedroom. Not my studio. I am in Whistler, BC, Canada. I'm working a week. I'm working away for a week. So welcome to my current studio. I want to thank you all for joining me. And okay, let's jump in, right? So today is going to be a little bit shorter. But I want to clarify a couple things. If you are setting boundaries with your teenager and your teenager is ignoring them, busting right through them, seemingly doesn't care, and you feel disrespected and you feel like unheard, I think is the word I'm thinking of. This is what we're going to talk about. Boundaries. So first of all, okay, and I also want to say, this is one of the key modules that I talk about in my Empowered Parent Mastermind, which is starting again in January. I'm currently running it right now. We're in week 6. And also in my 5-day challenge coming up in January. So if what I'm sharing on this IGTV or YouTube video, wherever you're watching this, seems to resonate with you, you're going to want to get in on my 5-day challenge because that's where this is. I also have a boundaries program that I will share with you. Okay. When you are having troubles with your teenager and they're not respecting your boundaries, here's the first step. Boundaries are not about controlling behavior. I know that might sound a little bit confusing. Boundaries are not about controlling behavior, okay? Boundaries are an emotional currency at a relational level. Are you still with me? Boundaries are an emotional currency at a relational level. So let's look at an iceberg for a second. I wish I had a drawing of one right now. Right here, I do, but I don't. Okay, an iceberg. So behavior in our brains, okay? I posted a video about this a while ago, a TikTok and an Instagram video. If you're looking at an iceberg, the top of the iceberg is the behavior. So that is what you are seeing from your teenager. That's the behavior, top of the iceberg. Okay, are you with me? The bottom of the iceberg is all of your teenager's emotions, thoughts, beliefs, developing values, their identity, all of these things which are new and developing in their brain. That's below the surface. Right? You all know the metaphor, the truth of an iceberg, right? Is that all you see is like the top 20, 25%, maybe 30. The rest of it is all under the water. Okay. So behavior comes from emotions, beliefs, values. That's where behavior comes from. So the first issue that you might be having, and I want to say you are not alone in this, because if you're like me, you were never taught what healthy boundaries are, let alone how to set them and how to keep them and all of that stuff. Like there's no training for this, okay? So please, for just 1 second, please do not be beating yourself up. Don't be taking this out on your teenager, even though I know you're angry and frustrated. This is something that is not well ever taught or explained, and you are not alone, and that does not make you a bad parent, and doesn't make that you're failing or nothing. You're welcome here, okay? Boundaries come from, because they are emotional currency at a relational level, a boundary is addressing not the top of the iceberg. The boundary doesn't necessarily does not address the behavior. If you are trying to use a boundary to constantly like go at the top of the iceberg, like and make a change at the top, that's not going to work. You're only dealing with the top 20%. That behavior that you're seeing that you don't like or don't want or would like to correct is based on the 70 to 80% that's under the water. Emotions, values, beliefs. That's where they come from. That's why boundaries work when they're done correctly. Okay, so a boundary starts with you. What now? Yes, a boundary does not start with your teenager. A boundary starts with you. Boundaries are about you creating a definition of what works for you and what doesn't, as far as respect, trust, feeling cherished, feeling appreciated, all of those things. Boundaries start with you, and they are a description of what works for you and what doesn't. Now, I'm not going to get too into this because this is in the programs that I run. This is just here for today. But your boundaries are not about expectations. An expectation is like you expect your child to be an automaton, a robot, highly compliant, do exactly what you say, and never argue. Yeah, I thought my kids would be that way too. I also thought I'd be Mary Poppins, but I'm not, and that bag of magic syrup has yet to show up. For real, that's what I thought it was going to be like. So your boundaries come from are an emotional currency at a relational level, and they need to be reasonable. Okay? You can also negotiate a boundary to a certain degree. You have to know what your bottom line is. Like, are there certain words, phrases, or behaviors that you just simply don't feel respected around? You feel disrespected when they show up. You feel taken for granted when those show up. Those are things. I want you to start there, okay? Boundaries start with you, not your teenager. And they are defining what you as a human being, not a better person or a worse person or whatever, what you need to feel respected, okay? Then you share those with your teenager. And then you say to them, these things, these words, phrases, or behaviors are ways that I don't feel respected. So I'm going to set a boundary that when those show up, blah, whatever that is. This isn't expecting your teenager to be a perfect automaton, because that's never going to happen. Now, you can negotiate somewhat. I hope you have a bottom line, but your teenager might say, well, when I'm doing this, like I'm doing what feels right for me, and I'm doing what, because otherwise I feel like you think I'm stupid and you don't trust me and you go, oh, okay. All right. I haven't quite seen it that way. What if we did it this way? Like there is give and take, because that's a relationship. So if you're I'll go back again. If you're using boundaries to try and control their behavior, that's the top of the iceberg, or create better compliance, that's the top of the iceberg. That's not a boundary. A boundary is a tool for the bottom of the iceberg, which is where behaviors come from. Because why? Because a boundary is a tool to build connection. And that's why it feels so hard. That's why parents feel so dang frustrated, and why I think it's such a ripoff that there's no training for this before you become a parent, let alone get into a relationship with anybody. That would be nice to know. Because when you can see that the long-term win is connecting with your teen. at the under the below the water level, the biggest part of the iceberg, if you connect at that level, you build respect, you build connection, you lower conflict, you increase communication, and you increase connection, right? So the boundary has to come from you. Then you express this to your teenager. Then you say, what does that look like? So remember, you're expressing an emotional experience, a need that you are owning, that you want to have. This is an emotional experience that I want to have in a relationship such that I feel respected and appreciated and etc. And what does that look like for you? So then you're kind of in a negotiation with your teen. Now, just a second. Just because I say negotiation doesn't mean that your teenager is wearing the pants. You are equal human beings in your value and your right for respect and dignity. You're not equal when it comes to authority. You are the parent. But you don't get that out of control and compliance. You can try. Quite frankly, I think it's exhausting. And actually, psychology studies have now proven over decades that it decreases respect, decreases trust, decreases connection, increases conflict, and lowers communication. So you can try it. It's kind of futile. When you get that the boundary comes from you, it's a whole other line of thinking. And here's the reason, because the majority of parents who, they're not less intelligent. I am not saying that. But the majority of frustrated parents who, like the rest of us, were never taught about what boundaries were, the first thing they always say, I did this on a TikTok live yesterday, and this is the first thing they always say to me, but what do I do when they don't comply? But what if they don't do it? But what if they don't do it? Okay, if that is your first question, that's valid. You're probably going at this from the top of the iceberg. You're trying to use boundaries to control behavior. That's not what they do. Boundaries connect at an emotional level, which is where behavior comes from, so that you build the connection that then builds respect, that then changes the behavior. It's a bottom up, not a top down. Now, once you get that kind of boundary clear with yourself, because it starts with you, and then you communicate that with your teenager, and then you do perhaps a little bit of negotiation, maybe, by hearing your teenager out and seeing, is there room for negotiation? Because remember, you only come to the conversation with your own perspective. And your teenager is not stupid. They're a teenager, but they're not stupid. So they are giving them space to express their emotions, values, and beliefs, and where they stand and how they see the world is important, because that is, again, coming at behavior from the top, from the bottom up. Okay, there's listening in there. It's not I draw the line, I say what goes, this is the last word, and that's it. That's top down, that's control and compliance. Now, you get your boundary, you get your negotiation. Okay, so let's say now you've done that work and your teenager busts through the boundary. They're not invested in your boundary, or so let me explain that first. So let's say your teenager busts through your boundary. They didn't, I hate the word comply because it's not what I'm talking about. They didn't respect your boundary. That's what I'm trying to say. Wow, lost my words there. They didn't respect your boundary. Does it mean that this is the first thing parents ask me. Now what do I do? What's the consequence? I need to consequence. No, you don't. You connect before you correct. Why? Because connecting is the bottom up. It's the bottom up. That's where change comes from. Correcting is top down. You go back to control and compliance, and it simply just doesn't work. Long term, it doesn't work. And for your teenager, it builds a lot of disrespect, resentment, frustration in the same way you're feeling. So now you both end up feeling that way, which does nothing. So when let's just say when, come on, let's be real, right? When your teenager disrespects your boundary, it starts with a connecting conversation. And it sounds something like, here's what I saw, here's what I noticed, like your data. What's your data point? Not no. If you're going to start any sentence with you, I guarantee you it's going to blow up in conflict. It's very, very aggressive and confrontational. I noticed you came in after curfew. I see that your dishes are still on the table. I noticed that the towel is still on the floor. Okay? Give your data point. Here's what I see. Here's what I heard. Here's what I noticed. Okay. I remember you and I having a clear conversation about my boundary, about XYZ, your curfew, the towel, the dishes in the dishwasher. I don't care, whatever it was. And we had agreed on XYZ. Help me to understand what happened. Help me to understand. So maybe they were trying to get home for curfew and their ride ended up having a few drinks, so that wasn't safe. It was late. They didn't want to call you. They got in another car. They got stopped at the train, which caused, like, I don't know, whatever. Just ask your teenager. Tell me what happened. Or tell me what happened would be good for the curfew. If it's the dishes or the towel, you could say, tell me what got in the way. Or you could say, help me to understand. Help me to understand what happened. That is a connecting conversation that you have when a boundary's been disrespected. Because you don't know what happened. And setting boundaries overall is not about controlling your child so that you feel like a better parent. I'm sorry to burst your bubble. It's about teaching. This is about creating a human, an independent, successful adult. That they learn healthy, sustainable habits to be a contributor to the world as they move from being a consumer. Because young children are all a consumer. That's how they were born. That's all good. But it's like your job as a parent to move them from consumer to contributor. So that's partly what you're doing. And boundaries is one of the ways that you do that. So help me to understand, tell me what happened. That's what you say. Then you can say to them something like, okay, if they say, well, I don't like it, like you're helping them build a habit. I don't know about you, but anytime that you first started a new habit, did you get it right the first time? What about the second time? What about the 50th time? Are you perfect? Yeah, no, me neither. Sucks, hey? So they might not get it. So sometimes that point of connection, that conversation is just, hey, look, I'm going to say it to you again. This is when I see this happen, when the towel's on the floor, when the dishes are still on the table, when you're coming in late for curfew, I feel disrespected and unappreciated. And I don't want that in my relationship with you. I love you and I want to feel connection. So what do we need to make sure it happens next time? Ask the question. Because for some kids, it means they need to get up like 5 minutes earlier, or they need to set an alarm on their phone, or an external alarm is always good, because alarms on your phones, let's face it, always get turned off. It's not a great cue for the brain to change behavior or create a behavior. So you want to go and figure out what will it take to happen next time. Ask the question. Then you get into, okay, now, did you ever set a consequence in there? Did you notice that? Was a consequence necessary? I don't know. Maybe it is. But if you're jumping to consequence, then I promise you, your thinking is still trying to only address the top of the iceberg. And I understand why that might be, because that's likely how you were raised, if you're like me. And it seems like the fastest path, because that's the top of the iceberg. That's what you can see. So why wouldn't you deal with that? So you just go straight top down, top down, top down. That's not working. It's not sustainable. And it doesn't actually create long-term behavior change. What I'm telling you is not the easy path. It's simple. It's not the easy path, but it's the guaranteed path. Not just because I say so, but science, says so. Lots and lots of psychologists and psychiatrists and social workers, and it's been proven that when you connect at an emotional level, that's what creates true relationship. That's where respect is built. Boundaries are about respect, not control and compliance. Okay? So if a consequence is actually necessary, you don't say what it is. And please stop taking your kid's phone. I'm not going to say it again. If you're interested, I'll tell you more. You can take one of my programs in January and I will go over the whole thing. Taking the phone is a emotional manipulation and coercion, because that's the biggest pain point you can find. When you're frustrated, I understand that. I'm telling you it doesn't work, because it has nothing to do with what they did. And teenagers tell me every day, all they do is feel more angry, more disrespectful, more disrespected, and they will want to act out more because they're so angry, because it had nothing to do with nothing. A consequence is something that is meaningful to them. So ask them if you feel a consequence is necessary. And I'm telling you, I don't think the first go around it is necessarily, because this is about building healthy habits. And so what if they didn't get it perfect the first time? Yes, it hurt. And you tell them, my feelings are hurt. I feel really upset. Yes, be totally honest with them and give them a chance to make it right the next time. Now, you reiterate the boundary, you create an agreement, okay? Then the next time, maybe the next time they bust through your boundary, maybe the next time they get closer to it. If they get closer to it, you got to acknowledge that. Why? Because you're helping them build healthy habits. Sure, they might have not gotten it perfect because they're not you. They're never going to be you. They're never going to care as much as you do about whatever it is. But if they got closer to it, then you say to them, hey, look, I really appreciate that you made the effort to make this work. There's still a couple things, that I'm feeling disrespected. Help me to understand. How can we make this work next time? But you got to acknowledge that they're getting better at it. If you're trying to lose weight and you are making your own meal at home because you don't want to eat out, and you get it right 3 days in a row, but you forget, and then you have to go get a quick greasy hamburger on day 4. Am I going to crap all over you because you got the greasy hamburger on day 4? Or I'm going to be like, hey, look, you did awesome for 3 days. Good job. What are you going to do tomorrow to get back on the bus? That's all that's required. Connect before you correct. That is not my saying. I got it from the Gottman Institute, okay? So that's one of the things that you can do. Now, let's say there is a consequence necessary. Remember, if you're saying first off the bat, they don't respect my boundaries and they don't care about my consequences, back to step 1. You've got to connect. And that doesn't mean not being in a position of authority. Having an emotional connection that builds respect doesn't mean you're not in a position of authority. Don't get me wrong about that. Okay? So you've got to start connecting. It's like, you're dealing with the top of the iceberg and it takes a lot longer. You got to get your dry suit gear on. You got to learn how to dive in really cold water. You have to learn all these things to go to the bottom of the iceberg. And it might take you longer, but it will get you the result you're looking for. So if a consequence comes up and it's not working, they don't listen to my consequence, and it's something like grounding or taking their phone, I guarantee you it won't work. Actually, I personally promise you it won't, because it's not meaningful. Teenagers tell me all the time they would prefer mentorship and learning a life skill as a consequence. Because at least, even if they don't like it, they're learning something. So maybe they have to wash the dishes for the week. Then you pick up the tea towel and dry the dishes. It doesn't mean they're going to want to talk to you. Hello? They don't like what they're doing. But you can dry the dishes with them, not to nitpick how they wash the dishes. Oh, I hope you heard that. Do not nitpick. Yes, certainly, correct if necessary. But don't ask for perfection, okay? Please, can we just let that go? But you pick up the tea towel, and when they're doing it, you can say to them, look, I know you hate this, and you're doing a great job. I'm really proud of you. You can connect through a consequence. Whoa! Okay, that was terrible. I wish I could sing like Taylor. My friend Taylor as well. So you connect through a consequence. You can connect with that. Not just control and create greater compliance. It's never going to work. It's not what it was intended for. Ask your teenager what a consequence is. What do you feel is a meaningful consequence? Most of the time, they'll come up with consequences that are way harsher and more meaningful for them. You can say to them something like, okay, well, if you were me, what would you do? Or if you were me, what consequence, do you think is meaningful for you? And they will usually answer you. The connections, yes, I do understand that. And keep the connection going. Keep the connection going. You've got to keep trying on the connection. Absolutely. Oh, thank you so much. You guys are so sweet. It's hard building the connection so that you get the emotional currency at a relational level and deal with under the water of the iceberg. It is hard. I'm going to tell you that it's hard. And it's the only way. So keep going on it. Keep going on it. Keep going on it. Keep going on it. Now, if they don't care about a consequence, or they say to you something like, well, I don't think there should be a consequence. I think this is dumb. Yeah, they might. And then you can say to them, I get it. I get that you think this is dumb. That's okay. Unfortunately, these are the boundaries in our house, in our family, so that one of the ways that we feel respected. So then you could say to your teenager, maybe, what are some ways that I could respect you more? When was the last time you asked your teenager how you could respect them more? Okay, if they don't care, there's something missing in the connection level. It's still missing in the connection level. So if they don't care about the consequence and they just go, well, I'm not doing it. That's stupid. There shouldn't be a consequence. Time for more conversation. Okay, what do you think should happen? And what works about that for you? Great. Here's what doesn't work about that for me. Do you think we can find a middle ground? So teenagers often feel like they are constantly told what to do, when to do it. They don't have any choice. They're treated like children. They're told they're not smart enough, not tall enough, not capable enough, not whatever enough. And one of the ways they act out about that is by creating their own sense of freedom by completely ignoring boundaries and consequences. So sometimes connecting with your teenager, just letting them say like, okay, so tell me what this is about. I want to hear. But when you say I want to hear, you better listen. Sometimes it's simply about that they don't feel like they have any choice. They have no sense of agency in their own life. They have no sense of control over their own life. And so they act out. And so sometimes they feel so controlled, that's why they're doing it. I'm not saying you're controlling. I'm just saying that might be their experience. So this is why it's so important for you to connect with your teenager, to create that space of emotional safety where you listen more than you talk, listen, don't lecture, okay? To find out what is going on for them. And then you go back to boundaries and you say like, so what feels like respect to you? Now, some teenagers are going to say, what feels like respect to me is you leave me alone and I get to do whatever I want to do and you treat me as an equal. Okay, well, that would be great if you want to be treated as an equal. Here's your portion of the mortgage. Here's your portion of all the utilities. Here's your portion of the food. And I am happy to treat you as an equal if financially you choose to contribute in those ways. And I know that sounds harsh and kind of crappy. But that's what being treated like an equal looks like in our house. And even then, there is such a thing called respect, where I have certain things that I like that I have limitations around to feel respected and appreciated. And I know that you do as well. So tell me again, what's important to you, and let's see how we can meet those. So you keep going back into the conversation, okay? And a consequence, so the recent studies show that consequencing shouldn't really go on for more than 7 days, like grounding. And you might need to ground your teenager. I'm not against grounding. I'm also not against taking the phone. It's just not like the one-hit wonder. Okay, that doesn't work. More than 7 days actually increases the emotional experience of isolation, anxiety, depression, and then sometimes anger or loneliness. So just be careful on your timeline for consequences. And that's another reason why to make them meaningful. To make them meaningful. So if your teenager doesn't want to connect and they're like, screw you on all of the boundaries and consequences, they're not feeling respected. I guarantee it. Because when they give you, well, one of these, they are beyond feeling respected. I'm not saying you are disrespectful. I'm not saying you are a bad parent. I'm not saying that, you're being mean. They probably are, but whatever. That I'm saying that there's already a point of disconnection there. And so as a parent, as hard as that is, when you are feeling disrespected, to go in and keep saying, tell me what respect looks like to you. What words, phrases, and behaviors are present so that you feel respected. Now it doesn't mean you're placating to them, but you're connecting. And that is where boundaries and consequences start. They start with you. Okay. Boundaries don't start with your teenager. So when parents say to me, oh, it's way too late. It's just too late. I have an entitled teenager. It's too late. No, it's not. Because it never started with them. Never has, never will. Starts with you. Starts with you deciding that you are worth it enough to hold yourself in a position of respect as an equal, as a human equal with your teenager, both deserving respect and dignity. Then you remembering that you are the parent and that you are in a position of authority. And those are two different things. Equal respect and dignity as humans, along with reasonable and healthy authority with your teenager. To set boundaries. So it starts with you. When you believe and you make yourself a priority and you believe that you deserve respect and you stop saying you're going to do things or threatening or using ultimatums or saying, like saying something that you're going to do or what you want your teenager to do, like pick up that towel. I'm so tired of you not picking up the towel. And then you go pick up the towel. Okay, who's got who trained there? Then the next day you say, oh, I'm tired of asking you, what is it going to take for you to pick up the towel? And then you go pick up the towel. I'm as confused as your teenager because you're saying you want them to pick up the towel, but you keep picking up the towel. So you're very well trained and they're never going to listen to what you have to say because your words don't match your actions. When you become worth it enough that you stop picking up the towel, stop putting their dishes away, then your words will start to mean something, but not because you're trying to control them. Not because you're coming at the iceberg from the top down. Because you're coming at it from the bottom up, from emotions, values, beliefs. It's okay. It is okay if that's like this is not a condemnation, please. I do these because I want to serve and support you. I want to help you with the change. I want to help you create the relationship that you want with your teenager because you both deserve it. Because you are a good parent. And I believe your teenager is a great kid, even though you might be experiencing some disconnection right now. Okay, so consequences, again, have to be meaningful. Consequences are not built from retaliation or control. Not like, oh yeah, well you did that, well then I'm going to do this. Oh, you're going to do that, then I'm going to do this. And then you end up with this giant pissing match. Like, forget it. Back down. You're not going anywhere. Not going anywhere good, that's for sure. So when you set a consequence, consequences come from connection. Consequences are about boundaries, which are an emotional currency at a relational level. Consequences help build healthy, sustainable habits to create an independent, successful adult. Consequences do not come from control, creating greater compliance, or retaliation because you're pissed and you're hurt, and it is okay to be pissed and hurt. But a consequence is not about a retaliation. Be careful because you're teaching your teenager about healthy relationships, and those include healthy boundaries and consequences, not about a pissing match of retaliation and trying to control somebody. So I don't care if you're the parent and your parents did that with you. I honor, love, and accept you if that was how you were raised. Welcome to the crowd. Come on in, because that's most of us here. Okay? This is about connecting. Connecting doesn't mean that you do not have authority. I cannot explain that enough. You can have a very healthy and firm level of authority and still connect at an emotional level with your teenager. It is possible. If you are interested in more, there's a couple ways that you can get that. If you go onto my website, alipayne.com, and you go under programs, Become a Boundaries Boss is a new online program that I created that is super detailed video, worksheets, resources, everything to help you clarify and go through this step-by-step process of setting healthy, respectful boundaries, how to create consequences that work, okay? And remember that you are connecting, not controlling. Not the top of the iceberg, bottom of the iceberg. alipayne.com, under programs, Become a Boundary Boss. You can have that. If you would like and you want to join me for my 5-day challenge in January, there again, if you go under alipayne.com and under programs, there's 5-day challenge, there's a wait list. So if you sign up on that wait list, you will be notified the second that the dates are announced. When registration opens, you'll get first to the poll, okay? You'll first to the gates, you'll be in there. If you're looking for a deeper dive, my Empowered Parent Mastermind, which you will be notified about if you take the 5-day challenge, starts again late January. And I go into a really deep dive on all of these little relational components over an 8-week program to help you to understand this so that you can have a little bit less exhaustion, less frustration, and more a sense of ease and connectedness with your teenager. I want you to know that I believe in you, that this is hard stuff, that if you're like me, you probably weren't taught. So beating yourself up doesn't do any good. Just keep doing the best you can. Showing up here, watching videos like this. You can message me on Instagram at alipayne. If you're looking for more resources, I can send you some blogs and some other videos in the meantime, to get to January. So that's it for today on what to do when your teenager is ignoring your boundaries and consequences, which is extremely frustrating. I want you to let you know you're not alone. And I will be here next week talking all about relationships with your teenagers. I want to thank you so much for joining me today. Have an amazing weekend. Mwah. Bye, everybody.